So men compete within hierarchies against each other. Women don't have hierarchies against each other. The only thing they compete for is men. That's it. That's the only competition women will ever really have. And so they're all competing in their 20s, 30s, and this referred to as hypergamy. And because they're all competing, they really only settle down now when they're, in their early 30s or sometimes now in their 40s. That's why we have such a birth rate crisis. That's one of the big prime reasons. Well, what ends up happening because of this is that because these kind of higher status men, 15%, 20%, will basically hump all of these women who want them to hump them, right? They don't care. Men are like, whatever, you're a 4, I'll tag it. Oh, you're a 10, I'll tag that too. Yeah, great. Hell, we'll do it one day after the next. It's fine with me, right? They don't care. But for the women, that actually causes them to be socially devalued. So the more men they sleep with, the more socially devalued they are by other men. And so they become kind of what is referred to as leftovers, right? And they're kind of picking up men who are leftovers, who are in the bottom tier, and they don't really treat them very well. And it's not really a great life for them. So social media has enabled all of these women to begin to compete for that higher echelon of men. And that's never happened before in history. And we have no idea how to deal with this at all. There's just nobody has any clue. You can imagine in America, even going up to the 80s, that you were a product of your friend group, right? And girls would spend hours and hours and hours on the phone. They had kind of their own social media that way. Every 80s movie forever is making fun of it, right? And every 90s movie, the girl on the telephone, dad comes in, get off the phone! You know what I mean? Oh, you've been on it for hours and need the line untied. It's every movie ever. But the social circles that you had were localized, and you can't move out of localized circles, right? And this is all of human history. Your social circles are localized, and now they're not. They're not localized anymore. And so, now you can put an ad out essentially in 15 minutes on 15 different dating websites, and you can expand your range as far as you want or enclose it as far as you want. So you can expand your range to 500 miles to see if men will respond and give you what you want, or 20 miles. You could never do that before. This is the strangest experiment that nobody ever knew was going to happen with the advent of the internet, right?
We were like, oh, we got the Drudge Report.
Yeah, this is the weirdest social experiment in history, and it'll be looked back on as just that, as this kind of bizarre social experiment. So here's the experiment. We are going to assume for a second that men and women are equally virtuous. We equally have the capacity for virtue. So what you're talking about with, like, I don't want to be a slut. I don't want to be a skank. I don't want to be that, I don't want to be looked down on in society that way. I don't want to be a teenage mom. You know what I mean? All those things, bad virtues, they don't want anything to do with it. Well, what happens in this social experiment then, if we just assume for a second that all of these women, we can give them all this magic superpower. And the magic superpower is that the opposite sex, between the ages of you being about, 16 and 29, are going to do anything they can do to have sex with you. Whatever it is, they're going to attempt to do that thing in order to have sex. Now, this is your great superpower, okay? And you can take this superpower now and take it global, right? Before, everyone in your little domain, you all had your superpowers, right? But you had to stay inside your little petri dish. Right. Now we're going to make it airborne, right? Now the virus is airborne, and it goes all over the world. Well, the interesting thing is, think about this. Let's say you flip the experiment, and this happened with men. You give all the men the same superpower, 16 to 29. All women of the world would basically do anything they could to sleep with basically any man who was alive, right? We wouldn't really be much better, right? We would be all kinds of fucked up. We'd be all kinds of messed up. We'd be all kinds of screwed up if we could take that global and just whatever chick we wanted, if we just paid a little bit of attention to them and they would give us whatever the hell we wanted, we really wouldn't be any better. So on the virtue scale, what's happened is, because it's become a global phenomenon, the virtue's gone right out the fucking window. It's gone right out the window. The system pre-feminism was actually much more rigorous on the woman's side. They had a sisterhood, an actual sisterhood.
Right.
And so how this sisterhood worked was like this. If there was a woman who was being a skank or, this type of thing, or going after the various men, they would take care of that problem. And the reason that they would is because they were like, look, you're going to fuck this up for everybody. You're going to fuck this up for all of us, okay? Right. If these dudes realize that they can get this from us, right, and they don't have to pay, take care of us, nothing, they're not going to, okay? They're just going to do this, and they're not going to do that other part that we like, which is to basically sit on our asses at home for most of our lives, right, where they take care of almost everything. And it was a glorious exchange from the man and woman's perspective. It was a pretty glorious exchange, right? The men didn't give a shit; they were happy with that. Hey, you had my kids, you cooked the meals. If you have a bit of luxury in modernity, perfect. I don't care. You know, the 1920s, 1910s, not a bad time to be a woman. I got to tell you. And they lived pretty comfy lives, and they had that sisterhood made sense then. Now the sisterhood is different. Now they actually, because they make these choices early in life to devalue themselves through degeneracy, the sisterhood actually pushes women who want to stay chaste towards that lifestyle. And what it is pulling up the ladder behind them, right? They're going, okay, what we're going to do is this. We can't have you, Mrs. Virgin, pretty Midwest girl, go after these high-value men who don't want me anymore because I fucked 30 dudes behind an Arby's one night. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to push you into that same lifestyle and tell you, no, you don't want that. These men are all bad. They're just taking advantage of you. Why even save yourself? Blah, 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 right? That's what they're doing. So now the sisterhood's totally counterintuitive. It's doing the opposite of what it used to do, which is insane. That's the result of feminism. So even after the beauty is gone and they're gross and men aren't opening the doors and they're not carrying the groceries and they're not sniffing all around to get some, right? They still can't shut it off. It's now embedded in them. And so at that point, they become a problem. They actually, some of them become mentally ill. Or they end up living alone for the rest of their life, and again pulling the ladder up for other women, making them, doing the homemaking thing where it's like, no, go out and sleep with as many dudes as you can. I did, and my life is great. Meanwhile, they're fucking miserable in their cat houses, right? So I used to kind of feel a lot worse for them until I realized that a lot of them are just fucking horrible, Dave.